Do you remember the first time you saw a caribou in a cell cage?
Yes, I do remember the first time. I actually went back and looked at it. So it was just the day after that I got introduced to Mike and went up and looked at my new quarters in the trailer there in British Columbia. He and I got up the next morning and drove up BC Highway 3 and then took a turn to the south on Maryland Creek and up into Maryland Creek, which is just north of the border. And this is in November, in an early winter snowstorm, snowing really hard. Drive until we figured that's far enough for that truck. Then hiked in on the location, and then saw this caribou standing there, probably to start with 200 yards away in the snowstorm. A bull who had just lost his antlers the week before, and then was just amazed at how different they looked than anything I'd experienced. Everyone gets what deer and elk are. But these animals being so charcoal gray to dark, almost black, and then cream colored with a huge muzzle and head, they were just completely different. And this animal just stood there nonchalant with us. We got as close as 50 yards and didn't pay us much mind, and we were able to observe it eat lichen and be in its element in a blizzard snowstorm in the Selkirks. That's the first time I saw one.
So many of the people we've interviewed talk about how they're able to get pretty close to caribou and how caribou don't seem to be that skittish. Is that because is there some kind of have caribou forgotten in a sense what it's like to encounter predators, because they're so geographically isolated?
Yeah. Yeah, that's another unique characteristic about them, is just this idea of, as you suggest, a lack of skittishness, or the fact that they just appear unconcerned. Whereas other people who I take out with me to see caribou, they'd get up there and they'd see them right there in front of them. They go, well, they're just so dumb. And of course, that I think indicates our biased perspective. We should expect them to just bolt off at the mere presence of us. And so I think that goes to, caribou in these forested mountains had no reason to act that way. Their strategy, if their strategy is to be small numbers in groups spread out in an area which generally doesn't have high densities of predators, because if there's only caribou and maybe some moose available, there's not that many. So with the humans or anybody else coming upon them, I think that's just a reflection of caribou, that they've already taken their security measures. And if that's the fact, they're certainly an ungulate. They can run fast enough, and not to say that they wouldn't when pressed or chased. And I know there was at least one observation of a grizzly bear trying to catch a caribou, sneaking up on a caribou in a clear cut and jumping that caribou, and the caribou was easily outdistanced the bear. So they're perfectly capable of it, which again goes to the other side of them. They're secure in their speed if they know you're there. But it is remarkable that I chased them for 6 years in the mountains, and it would be nothing for me to sit all day within 20 yards of them. And certainly I had experiences where I would be frozen watching caribou, and I can remember this young bull, after attempting to try to get with the breeding cows, having no success and being chased off by the larger bull, comes over to me and walks right at me, and I say, well, he'll see me. He came right at me and then came right up to me and sniffed me, physically touched me to sniff me, and then backed away and then went around with no concern or cause or anything like that. And the same way, that same group with the big bull, I remember sitting there amongst all these probably 15 adult cows with one big bull and a few satellite bulls around, and I'm in the group probably 10 yards within the milling group, and one cow goes off in a certain direction. And the bull goes to herd her back into the group, so he comes around behind me because there's other things going on, and he tries to go between me and a tree. And he goes all the way until his antlers hit the tree on one side and me on the other side. And I didn't move. He just comes that far, brushes me that way, and then backs up, and then goes around the tree and then herds her back in. So I'd have these experiences just coming close to, including touching with the caribou, and sit there forever amongst them, like 10 yards away, and it was fantastic as a young biologist being able to observe their behaviors, count the number of chews they were taking within every 5 minutes or every 60 seconds, or knowing who was doing what to whom, or just watching them relax or live life and be able to see it right there in front of me, as opposed to one distant location sighting and then phew, the animal's gone. That was not the case with caribou. They're very unique that way. And they responded that way no matter who I had with me. This was the fun part about being the guide and tours. Like, oh, you want to see caribou? Let's go see caribou. Bring them up and bring people to see caribou, and they'd go, they're right there. Yep. And it was just fantastic to kind of give people that sight, the first vision of caribou that close.
You remember the last time you saw him?
I don't. It's probably... No, I don't. I could only guess maybe it was from the air looking down, or maybe when I was just later on after I got off the caribou project but then came back in to try to help with transplants. Maybe as I was just part of one of the transplant crews, and last time I saw was maybe when they were released into the pen or such into the Selkirks. That might have been the last time officially.